Most people lose the day before they even leave bed. Not because they're lazy, not because they're cursed, because the first thing they do every morning is surrender their mind to the phone, to noise, to stress, to other people's priorities, to a world that starts pulling at them before they've even taken one full breath. And then they wonder why they feel heavy, why they can't focus, why they're always behind, why life feels strangely exhausting before it even begins. But only 1% wake up differently, and that difference changes everything. Because the Stoics understood something most people still haven't learned. The first hour of your day is not a small thing, it is a verdict. It tells your mind who's in charge: impulse or discipline, noise or clarity, comfort or command. This is not about waking up early to look impressive. This is not a productivity flex. This is not a routine for social media. This is about becoming the kind of person who does not hand their inner life away before sunrise. And if you stay with me until the end, you won't just hear a morning routine. You'll understand why only 1% wake up like this, and why the other 99% keep living in reaction mode without even realizing it. Listen carefully. This is not a soft morning routine. This is a quiet war routine. A war against drift, against weakness, against the version of you that keeps losing the first battle of the day. Picture it: a dark room, a blue light, a face not even fully awake yet, already tense. The alarm goes off. The hand moves, not toward life, toward escape. Phone, scroll, message, headline, comparison, urgency. And just like that, the day begins in surrender. No stillness, no thought, no command, just immediate consumption. Most people don't notice how destructive this is because it looks normal. That's the trap. The habits ruining their life don't always look dramatic. They look ordinary, harmless, repeatable. That's how decline really happens. Not in one giant collapse, in fragments. A little discipline traded for comfort, a little attention traded for stimulation, a little self-respect traded for convenience. Day after day, morning after morning, until eventually a person starts feeling something they can't quite explain. Not just tired, heavy. Heavy with unfinished promises, heavy with mental clutter, heavy with the quiet pain of knowing they are becoming less than they could be. And the worst part? They think the problem is out there. Bad luck, bad timing, too much stress, not enough motivation. But often the problem begins much earlier, before the emails, before the pressure, before the responsibilities. It begins in the first few minutes after waking, when the mind is soft and the world gets there first. That's how most people live. They don't enter the day. They get absorbed by it. They don't choose their direction. They inherit it from whatever reaches them first. And then they call that life. The Stoics would call it something else. They would call it slavery to impulse. The most important battle of the day is usually invisible. No one sees it. No one applauds it. No one posts it, but it decides almost everything that follows. Because the morning is when your mind is most impressionable, before the armor goes on, before the pace increases, before the noise fully arrives. The Stoics knew this. They knew that if a person cannot govern themselves in the quiet, they will not suddenly become powerful in the chaos. That's why the first Stoic principle is simple. Do not let the world speak first. Before the feed, before the messages, before the opinions, before the demands, there must be a moment where your mind belongs to you. Even if it's only 5 minutes, 5 minutes of silence can do more for a human being than 50 minutes of frantic motivation, because silence exposes things. It shows you how restless you are, how reactive you are, how quickly your mind reaches for stimulation the moment it's left alone. And that is useful, because once you can see the weakness clearly, you can stop pretending it isn't there. That is where change begins. Not with hype, with honesty. The 99% wake up and immediately consume. The 1% wake up and first observe. That difference sounds small. It isn't. It is the difference between being led and learning to lead yourself. And no, this is not about waking up at 4 a.m. Let's kill that fantasy right now. You do not need a perfect sunrise. You do not need a luxury routine. You do not need to suffer theatrically. You need command. That's it. Step 1. Rise on the first command. When it's time to get up, get up. That sounds almost stupidly simple, but it may be the most important act of the entire morning, because that moment is never just about leaving the bed. It is about who gives the orders, your reason or your resistance. The body says stay, the blanket says later. The mind begins bargaining. 5 more minutes. I'll start tomorrow. I slept late anyway. I deserve rest. I'll make up for it later. And right there, the day has already begun to split in two. One version of you knows what must be done. The other wants comfort. Most people negotiate. The Stoic does not. He rises on the first command, not because he feels amazing, not because he's naturally disciplined, because he understands something deadly. Every time you delay what you already decided, you weaken your own authority. And once your feelings outrank your decisions in the morning, they'll outrank them all day. You said you would train, but now you don't feel like it. You said you would focus, but now you're distracted. You said you would change, but now you'll begin next week. That is how a life gets postponed. So the first win is not glamorous. Feet on the floor, back straight. Stand up. That's it. But do not underestimate what you just did. You proved in a small private moment that your word still has weight. And self-trust is built exactly like that. Quietly, early, without witnesses. Motivation visits. Self-trust stays. The 1% understand this. They do not build their morning on feeling. They build it on command. Step 2. Don't let the world speak first. Now you're up. Good. But the next battle comes fast. The phone is there. The feed is waiting. The world is ready to occupy your mind again. This is where most people lose, because they think checking the phone is a harmless habit. It isn't. It is psychological surrender. The moment you wake up and consume, you stop being the author of the morning. You become the audience, and audiences do not control the story. They react to it. That is why the 1% protect the first moments of the day like something sacred. No scrolling, no notifications, no letting strangers, headlines, or algorithms shape your first emotional state. Instead, create a buffer, a pocket of silence. Sit up, breathe, look around the room, feel the air, feel the fact that you are here, and ask yourself one quiet question. What kind of mind am I entering the day with? Not what am I doing today? Not what does everyone need from me? What kind of mind am I bringing into the day? That question is powerful because it shifts the focus back inward. Most people live from the outside in. If the weather is bad, they're bad. If someone ignores them, their energy drops. If work feels heavy, they collapse. The Stoics trained the opposite. They lived from the inside out. They knew the outer world is unstable by nature, so the inner world had to be strengthened on purpose. That strengthening begins here, before the noise, before the role, before the performance. The first few minutes of your morning should remind you of one thing. My attention belongs to me first. That is how the 1% begin. Not faster than everyone else, clearer than everyone else. Step 3. Wake the mind through the body. Here is what many people miss. You do not think your way into wakefulness first. You move your way into it. Open the curtain. Let light touch your face. Wash your face with cold water. Drink water. Step outside if you can. Walk. Stretch. Breathe deeper than you want to. Why does this matter? Because the body tells the mind a story. If you stay curled inward, eyes down, breathing shallow, moving slowly. Your body tells your mind, remain small. But when you stand tall, expose yourself to light, feel cold air, and move with purpose, the body tells a different story. We are alive. We are alert. We are not hiding. That is not just biology. That is identity training. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort because they understood something modern life tries to hide from you. Too much comfort makes a person fragile. Not evil, not lazy in some dramatic way. Fragile, easily irritated, easily discouraged, easily thrown off by small inconvenience. So every morning, do something physically honest. Something that asks effort from you before excuses fully form. A walk, push-ups, mobility work, fresh air, cold water, anything that reminds the body we do not need perfect conditions to function. That lesson transfers everywhere, into work, into focus, into relationships, into the hard days when life refuses to cooperate. The 99% ask, how can I feel better first? The 1% ask, how can I wake up stronger? There is a difference, and over time, that difference becomes a different life. Let me say it plainly. Confidence does not come from morning affirmations alone. It comes from evidence, and the morning is where that evidence gets built. Step 4. Remember that you will die. Now we get to the part most self-help avoids. The Stoics did not begin the day with fantasy. They began with truth. And one of their deepest truths was this: you are not guaranteed another morning. That is not a dark idea. It is a clarifying one. Because most people wake up as if life is endless, as if there will always be another Monday, another month, another chance to become disciplined, another year to become the person they keep talking about. But there won't always be. One day, you will wake up for the last time, and you will not know it when it happens. That thought cuts through nonsense. It makes pettiness feel embarrassing. It makes delay feel dangerous. It makes excuses sound weak. So each morning, remember mortality for a moment. Not to become afraid, to become awake. Ask yourself, if this day mattered, how would I meet it? If time were truly precious, what would I stop wasting? If this were one of my final mornings, what would suddenly seem ridiculous? That is the power of Stoic reflection. It reminds you that life is not ordinary enough to be lived carelessly. People waste entire years because they think they're wasting one morning. But mornings become weeks. Weeks become seasons. Seasons become a life. The 1% understand that. They do not romanticize time. They respect it. And respect changes behavior. When death becomes real, triviality becomes unbearable. Suddenly, you stop wanting to spend the first hour of the day in digital fog. Suddenly, the life you keep postponing begins to look urgent. Good. That urgency is healthy, because one day there will be no more mornings left to waste. And the Stoic wants to be able to say, I was awake while I was here. Step 5. Ask the 3 Stoic questions. Once the mind is awake, it must be directed. This is where most people fail. They wake up, move, maybe even feel a little better, but they never organize themselves. So the day scatters them. The Stoics used reflection to prevent that. Not pages of dramatic journaling, not endless overthinking, just clear questions. 3 of them. First, what is in my control today? Not the market, not traffic, not someone else's mood, not the past, not the timing of everything. What is actually in your control? Your effort, your attention, your words, your posture, your choices, your response. That question is liberating because it pulls energy away from fantasy control. Second, what must be done whether I feel like it or not? This is where adulthood begins. Children ask, what do I want to do today? A disciplined person asks, what is required of me today? One hard task, one conversation, one responsibility, one thing you have been avoiding because discomfort keeps winning. Name it. Not 10 things, not a fake productivity list designed to make you feel busy. The truth. What must be done? Third, Who do I need to be today? This may be the most important question of all, because most people plan tasks, not character. They know where they need to go, they know what needs to get finished, but they never decide how they will carry themselves. So pressure arrives, and they become whatever emotion tells them to become. Impatient, reactive, sharp, fearful, distracted. The Stoic decides in advance. Today, I need to be calm. Today, I need to be disciplined. Today, I need to be courageous. Today, I need to speak less and complain less. Today, I need to hold my standard, even if my mood disagrees. That is powerful, because identity drives action deeper than motivation ever will. A person chasing a goal may quit. A person acting from identity endures. The 1% ask questions before they consume answers. That is why they move differently. Here's the part most people won't tell you. This routine may not feel powerful at first. It may feel quiet, flat, unspectacular. Good. That is the test. The modern mind is addicted to intensity. It wants transformation to feel dramatic, but real transformation usually feels ordinary while it's happening. That is why so few people change. They keep chasing emotional fireworks instead of building solid ground.
Step 6. Do one hard thing before pleasure. Now comes the hinge point. Before comfort, do one hard thing. 1, not 7, not a punishing list. One meaningful act of discipline before pleasure. Train, write, read deeply, start the project, make the call, work on the thing you keep delaying, but it must contain friction. Why? Because the first meaningful action of your day becomes a message. If your first action is escape, the day learns escape. If your first action is consumption, the day learns consumption. If your first action is discipline, the day begins under your authority. That is why this step changes people. It is not just productivity, it is identity evidence. You are proving something to yourself before the world interrupts. You are proving that you can move without applause, without the perfect mood, without the perfect conditions, without waiting to feel inspired. And once that proof exists, your internal conversation starts to change. You stop saying, "I hope I stay disciplined today." You say, "I already showed myself who I am." That matters. Because confidence that comes from hype disappears fast. Confidence built from evidence stays longer. This is why the 1% feel different by 9 a.m. Not because their life is easier, because they already earned a private victory, and private victories build public strength. Here is the danger most people never notice. Their life is not collapsing through disaster, it is collapsing through drift. A little more delay, a little more distraction, a little less self-command, a little less courage, a little more sedation, a little less presence. And because it happens slowly, they call it normal. That is why mornings matter so much, because morning drift becomes life drift. You wake up and let the current decide everything. The phone decides your emotion. Urgency decides your pace. Convenience decides your standards. Mood decides your effort. That is not freedom. That is soft slavery. The Stoics fought drift with deliberate action. They understood that the small moments are rehearsals for the big ones. If you were careless in private, you will not be strong in crisis. If you cannot govern yourself in peace, you will not suddenly become steady in pressure. So no, your morning routine is not a minor lifestyle detail. It is training. Training for stress, training for disappointment, training for responsibility, training for the days when life does not ask whether you feel ready. Because when those days come, and they will, you will not rise to your intentions, you will fall to your training. So train early, train quietly, train before the world gets loud. That is what the 1% understand. Now let's talk about the morning that matters even more than the perfect one. The morning after failure. The morning after you broke your word. The morning after you stayed up too late. The morning after you wasted hours. The morning after you slipped back into the old version of yourself. What then? This is where real stoicism appears. Not in perfection, in return. because anyone can feel disciplined when everything is aligned. The person who changes is the one who comes back without drama. No self-hatred, no performance guilt, no speech about being broken, just clarity. I slipped. Now I return. That is strength. To return without excuses, to return without self-pity, to return without needing the mood to change first. The 99% fail once and make it an identity. The 1% fail and make it a correction. That difference is massive, because self-respect is not built by never falling. It is built by becoming the kind of person who doesn't stay down long. So if tomorrow morning is messy, return. If this week has been weak, return. If you've been asleep in your own life for months, return. There is power in being able to tell yourself, I will meet myself again in the morning, and when I do, I will not negotiate for long. That is peace. Not the peace of perfection, the peace of return. You do not need a brand new life tonight. You need a better first hour. Protect the first hour, and it starts protecting you.
Only 1% wake up like this, because only 1% understand what mornings are really for. Mornings are not just for getting ready. They are for remembering. Remembering that your mind is trainable. Remembering that comfort is not the goal. Remembering that feelings are weather, not law. Remembering that attention is a currency. Remembering that discipline is self-respect in action. Remembering that life is too short to begin each day in surrender. The 1% are not superhuman. They are just less negotiable. They do not ask, how can I make this morning easier? They ask, how can I meet this morning with strength? They do not worship routine for routine's sake. They use routine to restore order. They do not need the morning to feel magical. They need it to make them clear. That is why over time the gap becomes enormous. Same city, same hour, same 24 hours in a day, different identity. One person wakes up and hands their mind away. The other keeps it. One spends the morning feeding impulse. The other trains character. One becomes more distracted each year. The other becomes harder to shake. This is how lives separate, quietly, repeatedly, at dawn. So let's make it simple. If you want the pure Stoic morning routine, it looks like this. Wake up and do not reach for the world. Rise on the first command. Bring light, water, air, and movement into the body. Sit in silence long enough to hear yourself think. Remember that life is short. Ask, what is in my control? What must be done? Who must I be? Then do one hard thing before pleasure. That's it. Simple enough to repeat, hard enough to matter, powerful enough to rebuild a life. And notice what is missing. No vanity, no performance, no obsession with looking optimized, no fake monk theater, just order, just awareness, just self-command. That is why it works. It is not trying to impress anyone. It is trying to restore someone. So, tomorrow morning, when the alarm sounds, and the room is dim, and the bed is warm, and the phone is close, and the old life is waiting for you to repeat it one more time, pause. Because that moment is the border, the threshold, the place where you either hand your mind away or claim it. You do not need to be perfect tomorrow. You just need to be present. Wake up. Don't reach, rise, breathe, move. Remember how short this life is. Choose who you will be. Do what is hard before what is easy. Then do it again the next day and again. Not for a dramatic transformation, not for some online identity, not to impress people who aren't carrying your life. Do it because every strong life is built on ordinary mornings that were taken seriously. And one day, maybe weeks from now, maybe months from now, you'll notice something. The war is still there. The noise is still there. The pressure is still there. The world is still trying to rent space in your head. But you are different, quieter, stronger, less available to nonsense, less ruled by comfort, more capable of carrying your own life. That is the gift of the Stoic morning. It does not make you superhuman. It makes you solid. And in a world built on distraction, solid people are rare. One day your life will be the sum of ordinary mornings, not the plans, not the intentions,
not the versions of yourself you kept describing, the mornings you lived, the mornings you wasted, the mornings you conquered, the mornings you surrendered. That is what your life will be made of. So tomorrow, when your eyes open, remember this: before the phone, pause. Before the noise, pause. Before the excuses, pause. Before the world, pause. And ask yourself one question: will I rule my mind this morning, or will I hand it away again? Only 1% wake up like this, not because they are special, because they decided the first battle matters. You can decide that too. And if this hits something real in you, don't just agree with it, prove it tomorrow morning. And if you're serious about building a mind that's harder to break, subscribe, because this channel is for people who are done living on impulse. Because how you wake up becomes how you live, and how you live becomes who you become.